Right.
They
Okay.
call it the Orange Dinosaur. So it was a miniature golf course place, and the Orange Dinosaur was the big, icon.
I feel like I've driven by there before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just got turned into the big development a couple of years ago.
Oh, so the dinosaur's not there anymore?
It's still there.
Oh, okay.
It's on this big, enormous retaining wall. But it was just a fluke that my husband and the developer met. We met at an event we were doing actually for Ernie Bach in his airplane hangar down in Norwood. We were, doing food there, and they just happened to meet. And the developer said, "Oh, I want Kane's Donuts in my development." And my husband was like, "You want me to come there? Okay, meet me at 6:00 tomorrow morning." And he's like, "Okay, see you at 6:00 tomorrow morning." They went. They were like, he's like, "What do you think?" My husband's like, "Yeah, looks good." He's like, "All right, we have a deal." He's like, "Yep, sounds good." And I'm like, that's how entrepreneurs do it. They just, we're doing this.
Wow. Right.
No research, no data.
Right. It's a totally antithesis of the really, really slow way that some of us do things.
Yeah, they just did it.
Yeah.
He grew up in Saugus, so he knew Saugus Route 1. But I was like, wait a minute, there's another store on the other part of Saugus. How does that work? Aren't you gonna and not the least bit of consideration about that? Like, okay. This is why I'm an entrepreneur.
Well, that's a good story. Sorry, I did get distracted for a second. My son was walking over here, and, and his dad was like, wait, stop. We haven't actually started yet. But
Let me know when it's ready to hit record.
Okay. I mean, we could give them a couple minutes. I assume everybody's going to be on. Just a couple minutes.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy Monday.
Actually, it was nice. I didn't turn my computer on until last night.
Very good.
Very good. Yep. Me too.
Yeah, my earlier meeting this morning, I was like, wow, Jean, I didn't get too many emails from you this weekend. Did you take the weekend off? I was like, well, I'm always looking, but, I guess I kind of did. There was one email that came through that I should probably send.
Okay.
Somebody looking for earlier
Past data?
Pat, yeah, you got that one?
Yeah. How do we give them does Jane Wellman, she doesn't keep them up on the, I know she doesn't keep them up on the website. She replaces them. But is there like some, I wonder if there's some back thing where she does keep them on the website but doesn't? You know what I mean?
I'm sure it exists someplace.
My email stopped working for some reason. So if you just sent it, I haven't gotten it yet. Sorry.
I think Bob sent it a little bit earlier.
Oh, now I see. Oh yeah, that's weird. My email has been so strange. I restarted my computer and usually that fixes everything. But I checked.
Carrie just had her computer crash, so she's coming.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I see an email from Jenna too, from Recreation, which is related to something that I was going to mention. So, okay. Yeah. I might need to restart again.
I can recreate them, but I wonder if Jane Wellman has them on like a track.
Are you talking here? Let me look this up while
Jane.
computer's restarting. Sorry.
I'm sure IT can very simply get this. I'm very confident that IT can make short work of this.
I don't want to make IT do that. I can just dig out every old email though and do it. But I'm wondering if there's any chance she kept them separate. I'm just going to ask her really quick.
Or it even could be
Oh
something.
yeah, I have a spreadsheet. Yeah, sorry. I'm
Oh,
just
you
now
have a,
able to open the email.
you do?
Yeah,
You keep a spreadsheet of every Wednesday?
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, because I kept a spreadsheet of a giant spreadsheet that has everything for every single day, so I would have to go through and dig each one
Oh,
out.
right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I do have for every single day. Sorry. No, I didn't just keep for just Wednesdays. Do we need to just keep Wednesdays for the question?
Yeah, that's what they were looking for. Kevin just texted me. He's off today, so I think he might have mentioned that.
Oh,
Yep.
it says, yeah, is there a way to keep on Wednesdays and daily pre-June 3rd? So it looks like just after June. She was basically just looking to mimic what we had done on the web. But yeah, I can share that spreadsheet. Hi, Carrie.
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't actually started yet. They were responding to an email question that we were talking about.
sorry I was late. My computer crashed.
Mine is not, the email's not working. So sorry that your computer we're having all sorts of.
I hate keeping people waiting, but here I am. Morning,
Okay.
Rick. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Hey, Jean.
Hi.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
I can't see you, but I can see your number. Hi.
Trust me, you don't want to see me.
Oh, no.
But I do have a gazillion mosquito bites right now, so.
Ooh.
Oh.
I just realized I left something upstairs. I will be right back down. Sorry.
And I texted Paula, so she should have everything.
Okay. And Kevin's usually here by now, but
He's not coming
Kevin's
today.
off.
oh,
Sorry,
okay.
Jean.
That's
Okay.
okay.
So Kevin's off and Paula's on vacation, so it's just us.
That's
Paula
right.
is on
That's
vacation.
right.
Right. Okay. Great. Sorry. Okay. So at 10:09, I'll go ahead and call the Board of Health meeting to order. Anyone want to take notes, or should I take notes?
I'll do it.
Oh, thank you, Carrie.
There's also, now that RCTV is recording, I wouldn't worry too much about picky notes if we want to have one of the admins help with finalizing.
Okay.
If you want to
Okay.
just take some generic notes and then we'll hand it off to one of the admins.
Okay.
Great.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Hi, Laura. Laura Jim, sorry. Laura
Oh,
Blassick,
hi.
Laura Jim just joined by video. Hi. Okay. So are there any comments before I start off with this agenda? Any thoughts? Nope. Okay, seeing none, I will move on. So COVID-19 discussion. So the most recent thing that has come out from Governor Baker's office was the order on Friday, August 7th, which is new updates to protocols and procedures and orders. So along with that, there were 3 parts, regulation or what's the word I'm looking for? Recommendations about enforcement. There were some changes to restaurant protocols, and then there was a new updated gatherings order. So the enforcement changes are to that, previously health inspectors have been enforcing this, but now state and local police officers can enforce these orders and fine people who violate them. And then for high-risk communities, Reading is not a high-risk community, but there are more intervention teams going in to coordinate more efforts in high-risk communities. And then with restaurants, it looks like one of the main things is that alcohol cannot be served. Basically to make sure that bars are not operating right now, that only restaurants that are serving alcohol with food that's prepared on site is what's allowed. And so, in the past, we have sent around guidance when new guidance comes out. Laura, I don't know if you sort of heard from all the restaurants by this point, but one thing that we have been doing up to this point was just forwarding the most recent guidance that's come out. So we could forward this to restaurants, letting them know that the protocols have changed, and just forward that most updated protocol. I don't know what board members think about that.
I mean, I think that's a good practice to give notice. I guess I don't know how easily that's accomplished.
Oh wait, Jean, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
Oh wait.
Yeah, not a problem. We have an email list that we've used in the past.
Yeah.
Right, Laura?
You can never communicate enough, so that's fine. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, is it just restaurant? So given what we just said, is it just restaurants that are impacted by these new orders? Are there other entities that we should think about?
Yeah, right. So the restaurants, the sector-specific checklist and protocols, that was changed and called out in the press release, but there's also a separate gatherings order, which is related to all the youth organizations that we've been reviewing protocols for. So it looks like Jenna this morning, who's from Recreation, just sent out an email to everyone letting them know that the guidance has now changed, and that instead of 100 people at an outdoor gathering, it's now 50. So those are the organizations that I was thinking of, the youth protocols that we've been reviewing, and then the restaurants were called out specifically. But then there's also, the addition of police are now able to enforce these, and the order made it clear that it was on both public and private property.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it really sounds like, yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Did you see the abridged version I sent you that you might want to put on the town page that discusses the executive orders and the checklist for the restaurant and everything, like 5 or 6 small sentences, just all the announcements that were made, the orders? Okay.
Yeah, I think that looks
I sent that to everybody.
Did you send that to everybody? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So were you thinking of just basically copying that text so to give everybody background, if you haven't had a chance to look at that, it's an email from DPH that highlights all these recent changes with the guidance that came out on Friday. So Laura was thinking we could post that on the Board of Health website. Laura, you can't see them, but they're shaking their heads in agreement.
Yes. Yes.
So it basically covers everything from the outside gatherings that went from 100 to 50. It says the alcohol protocol really hasn't changed that much because they weren't allowed to be open as bars before, but it's kind of like a reiteration reminding everyone that they can't be open as bars, and chips and pretzels and popcorn don't count at a bar, which they didn't before, but a few people have been trying to do that. So it's been coming up at our DPH calls, as you probably heard, Carrie, a lot. So they're reiterating that really. And then just, their usual, the mask, stop the spread. And it just gives you like a link to everything that specifically tells you what the latest is.
Yep.
And that we're not going past the phase that we're on, that step 2 of phase 3 has been postponed indefinitely.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that sounds good. Do you want to work with Jane Wellman to get that up?
If you guys like it the way it is, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It doesn't have to go through incident command or anything?
Oh, right. I guess it does. So I guess we could ask them.
Do you want me to send it to Greg Burns?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay.
So Laura, Jim, I see you there. And since you volunteered to call into our meeting, I had put on the agenda too, what is this gatherings order? Does it mean anything for election safety?
So
It doesn't, because polling places are exempt.
right. I don't know, to be honest with you. We can't cut down the number of people any more than we already have that are in the field house or in early voting. So I'm not quite sure it's going to affect it. In that point, we've cut it down as much as we already can.
You mean we couldn't have fewer voters? Because I understand staff, we can't reduce the number of staff. And the only thing I was thinking we could reduce was the number of voters inside any enclosed spaces at a time. So basically lines would be outside rather than inside. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, so right now we have it set up so that there's 8 voting booths that are open per each precinct. And then we are allowing 3 to be in waiting, I guess you would say. 1 would be waiting for the booths to open up. 1 would be at checking in, and then 1 waiting to check in. We can cut that down. And we were intending on having the lines in the lobby and then the hallway on each end of the field house itself. Those can be moved outside if we feel that that's, you know, as long as weather's permitting. I can't see making people stand outside in the rain.
Right, right. Do we have the potential to rent tents?
I'm not sure we'll have to rent them if we need them, because I believe that between facilities and the fire department, they have a bunch. So we would be able to use some of the, you know, those. My suggestion would, we could determine how many people can fit in the lobby, maybe making sure they keep 6 feet apart and 1 line going through, and do the same thing in the hallway.
Yep.
And then go from there. And my thought is that most of the line is going to be outside anyway.
Okay.
So make sure I understand, it was cut down from 100 to 50?
For outside areas.
And
And
what
for-
would,
Inside, it's 25.
It's
People.
still 25.
But that's what, previously, I think there was a limit of 8 people per 1,000 square feet, but no more than 25 in an enclosed space. And
gotcha.
then, you know, and we had followed the 8 per 1,000 square feet, but not the 25, obviously, for the field house.
Yeah, we'll never be able to get to the 25.
Right. Because we have 74 staff.
Right, exactly.
The other thing I was wondering about was just ventilation, and then any sort of area for people who show up and have symptoms. I mean, you know, we always want to keep in mind, we don't want to prevent anyone from voting. Everyone should be able to vote. Also, everyone should be able to be safe, to not be at risk.
Exactly. So that ventilation is one of the things that I'm part of the reason why I'm on this call is because I got on early before talking with command, and that's one of the things that's on my list, is to make sure that the field house is ventilated as best as possible that day. But one of the things that I haven't worked out yet, and I actually discussed it with quite a few of the election staff over the weekend. I had a Zoom call with, I offered it to all the election staff that I had an email for. And we just went over what all the safety precautions are going to be and what they need to do to stay safe and be able to work safely. And that's one of the things that came up too, is being able to isolate those that refuse to wear a mask. So unfortunately, the law does not allow me to put them outside, but it does allow me to isolate them. So we have to figure out a way to do that and still meet the laws. And I had quite a few suggestions. And I won't repeat the ones that weren't nice, because people are like, they need to wear a mask. So, we'll work that part out too, as far as maybe finding a place that has a little bit better ventilation to put them, those that refuse to wear a mask. But we'll talk about that on command.
Okay. I mean, is there anything else that you want to, I mean, we were thinking we could talk about it here and then also talk about it in command. If
Right,
you'd rather wait till command, that's totally fine.
No.
too.
The reason why I'm kind of hesitant is because I still really don't know what to do. I still haven't quite figured out how we can do this. See, there's laws that, so the way the field house is set up, with the way the precincts are set up and roped off, that rope is referred to as a guardrail. That guardrail identifies the precinct itself, and the ballot cannot go outside of the guardrail unless they're escorted by an election staff member. So I'm kind of in a dilemma that I can, yes, ask somebody that's not wearing a mask to go outside the guardrail with a ballot, but that means I have to put staff in jeopardy by asking them to escort the ballot outside of the guardrail with that person that's not wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out how to handle that. Yep.
So Laura, just listening to this, is it possible to set up the way you would set up for the early voting, and have a couple of booths that are like early voting, but then you'd still have to escort them? Is that what happens? Because you have the precinct set up, you can't have the safe harbor of early voting set up. Got it. Okay, never mind. Just had to talk myself through it. Okay.
Do you have to, in one location, have only one precinct set up per location? In other words, could you have the 8 precincts set up as currently envisioned, and could you have 8 other one box locations with guardrails, and say, and this is also precinct 1. So there are 2 precincts ones, one that has the 8 booths and one that has 1 booth. Is there a requirement that there only be 1 precinct per physical location, or can you have 2?
We can have the 2, and that was my original thought, to have a booth set aside for each precinct.
Yep.
The problem is that the ballot still needs to be escorted.
Yep.
By staff.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
So
Right.
Can they escort from 6 feet away? Is that it? I mean, how close do they have to be? They just have to have visual contact with the ballot? Or?
They have to have visual, yes. So generally, I don't know if you've paid attention, but in the field house itself, we have a section that has what we refer to as the automark machines. There's 2, they're the handicap machines. They mark the ballot for divisionally impaired, and it also can do it for the quadriplegic, can use that to independently mark their ballot. So what we do is we have the election staff member take the ballot to that machine, and then they mark their ballot, and then we have the election staff member take the ballot back to the precinct.
Oh.
So technically that's what needs to happen in this case.
Yep.
So what I need to do is so I'm kind of thinking this through in my head as I'm that's why I'm kind of hesitating. So technically what would happen is they'd come in and check in, they'd get the ballot, and they'd go to that isolated booth.
Yep.
But they're still within the precinct or within the guardrails to check in. So how do we isolate them while they check in and then have them get escorted? I mean, I can definitely have them escort somebody within 6 feet, but then how do they check in and get their ballot in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really kind of struggling with that. And what's happened at past, I've been at 3 different elections in Bedford, Burlington, and North Andover. And what they did is they had the person check in, and then they had them go to a booth off to the side that was within the guardrail. And then they had to go and put the ballot through the machine and check out. So that person without the mask was still technically within the areas of all the voters. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I can do that. We can have a booth within every precinct kind of set to the side for those that don't have a mask on, but that's still exposing our staff
Yeah.
and other voters.
Yeah.
That's, trying to find a happy medium there. I don't think there's an answer, but I'm still working on thinking about it.
I'm also thinking out loud here, and we probably have already talked about this, and there's a reason we can't do it, but the checking in outside, is that not an option?
Checking in the voter while they're outside?
Yeah. So that they're not ever in an enclosed space. Because you have to have the ballots within the guardrails, and so they still have to walk through the field house.
Yes.
Unless there's some door. They walk outside the field house to a separate door that goes right to, and I'm kind of thinking really outside the box here.
We could have them check in outside, but yeah, they still need to come in and get their ballot.
Right, they can't. There's no other way for people to have like a separate, like the door through which they enter if they're not wearing a mask and go straight into a booth.
No.
Is not an option.
So the existing protections that we have are that you've got the table set up so that it's a double table at check-in, and it's 6 feet by virtue of the double table, right?
Mm-hmm.
The volunteers will be masked.
Mm-hmm.
There's hand sanitizer available, maybe.
So every election staff member is going to get what I'm referring to as a kit. And in that kit, they're going to have a mask. Actually, I'd like to offer them 2 masks because throughout the day, you may want to change it. They're going to have their own pen. And if I am quick enough about it, the pen is going to include a stylist. And the reason for that is because they can use that on the pull pad. That way they have their own pen throughout the day. Nobody has to touch that iPad.
Yep.
They have their own stylist itself. And then it'll also have gloves and then a little thing of hand sanitizer.
Yep.
And there'll be also others hand sanitizer there for them to refill that as needed.
Yep.
At every entrance, there'll be a table with masks and gloves and hand sanitizer. So the voters will have that available to them.
Yep.
The pens that they use will be only touched by the voter.
Yep.
Once the voter is done with it, it'll get put into a box and then get sanitized again before it gets reused.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've done every precaution, and then also in between each vote, the booth will be wiped down.
Yep.
The tables will be wiped down, and the way that the staff is going to be, so when you walk up and you check in, the staff will then actually hand you a ballot. They're not going to do that this time. They're actually going to take the ballot. They're being instructed to take the ballot and slide it across the table.
Okay.
So that it goes to the voter, and that way they're not going any further than within 6 feet.
Yep.
So every precaution is taken except for the few that are going to walk in and refuse to have a mask.
Right.
Right. Are face shields going to be offered to the poll workers?
Yes.
Oh, great.
And then also too, one thing that we haven't talked about is that I was on a call with the state elections division last week, I think it was, and they're going to be sending out emails to all the town clerks offering the shields, the
Oh, the plexiglass shield?
plexiglass shields.
Oh, great.
And we'll be able to order them from the state and at no cost to us except for our tax dollars. But anyway,
Right.
so I'm gonna, came up in subject with the staff too, that they would like to have those shields. Cause I asked them, some people are saying the shields are not necessarily beneficial because you'll be sitting there and the voter will be standing and they'll kind of be looking down. But the staff felt that it would be worth putting it up. So I'm going to order them. So we'll have those as well. I mean, as far as those that refuse to wear a mask, there's going to be few in between. And with the fact that the poll workers will be protected as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Laura, will you have face shields for them as well?
Yes.
Thanks.
I mean, because that is, I mean, obviously the safety of everyone is our priority, but the poll workers are in the building for longer, and that's the desire to kind of keep those people safe. And I think you've done a great job of kind of identifying all of the ways to put physical barriers and prevent contact. So I guess I'm saying I'm hesitating. I'm comfortable that there has been an exhaustive process of making sure to keep those folks safe. So then I guess the question remains: what do you do? How do you have a separate booth for them to vote? And that's your operational question mark.
Right.
Right. And I do have one thought. Can I share my screen?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if I can do that, or maybe Jean.
You can do it. Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. Can you see the layout?
Mm-hmm.
So one thought that I do have is that we take a booth and put it in this corner right here. So that way it's within the guardrail. It's not necessarily ideal in the sense of the fact that the ballot is still passing back, but it's still within the guardrail. The only thing is I'm not positive if this booth right here would still be 6 feet away from this person. I mean, it would if we move this table up far enough.
Yeah.
But that's my immediate thought. So that way, at least that person is somewhat isolated, but still within the guardrail of the precinct.
Yep. Yeah, I do think that's
Good idea.
That looks like a good solution.
Yep.
And hopefully this can happen pretty quickly so that they're moving through. It's not like they're standing next to any of these people who are voting. It's just quick all the way to the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was part of the discussion too when we did the Zoom call over the weekend with the election staff, is they wanted to be able to make sure that these people were moved through as quickly as possible.
Right. Because presumably that third X for each of the precincts, the individuals that we're talking about would not wait at that X. They would move up to that isolated booth at the top.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if you had a family that came and voted together, there might be two of them with no masks, but I mean, I think that this all just seems very thorough. And we're clearly taking great measures to protect the staff that are at risk. I love that the state is making the plexiglass barriers available and that you're able to take advantage of that. I think that's excellent.
How else did the calls go? Was there anything that came up? Anything else?
it went very well in the sense that it made some people feel a lot better with the safety precautions that we're taking. I had some that have already said, no, we're not going to work at the polls, are now working. And then I had some that are still not going to work because just for the simple fact that we're allowing people in without a mask. You know, I don't, I mean, I understand why we can't, I mean, the United States is based on the fact that everybody can vote.
Yep.
And I get that, but I also wish that we had some way of saying either wear the mask or you're not voting.
Yeah.
You know,
Laura,
I really wish it could be outside somehow,
Yeah,
or like a fan. Could be a fan blowing air past them outside.
yeah.
The thing I keep thinking about is the air droplets possibly lasting for 3 hours in one space.
why
So that's
can't,
where the ventilation.
What's
Right.
that, Jean?
why can't it be outside, like on a curbside kind of thing?
The elections division had said absolutely not. Mostly because you can't secure the ballots. The ballots cannot be secured within, you know, they can disappear easily. And then also the equipment can't handle any kind of humidity or moisture.
But if there were some sort of an overhang area, I'm not that familiar with the field house, but if there were some sort of an area that was like an overhang outside of a doorway, something like that, that was a little less vulnerable, maybe that had a little roof over it, or
I could have a conversation with elections, but I'm willing to bet they're going to say no.
Right.
Because we've approached them with, can we do a drive-through type election where we have the machine set up under an overhang, just like you're saying, and have them just drive up, vote, and drive on. And they've said no, absolutely not.
One other thing that I wanted to make sure about was that, so, you know, we've been talking a lot about residents wearing masks, and I don't know if we're requiring all poll workers to wear masks or strongly encouraging it. I wanted to make sure that anyone working there, so any police or facilities or anyone, is also going to be wearing masks.
I have, and I will have to make sure that this is communicated, because that was another one of the concerns that came up is that the police department isn't necessarily wearing masks all day. I guess apparently some residents have seen policemen not having a mask on. So one of the things that came up was, are you going? I am requiring any poll worker to wear a mask. In the past, I've had with the name tags. Some of them refuse to wear the name tags, and I've sent them home. And I will do the same thing with the masks. And I will require that anybody that's inside the field house to wear a mask, including the police. If not, then they're going home.
Great.
The only one I can't do that with is, unfortunately, the voters. So.
I'm glad to hear that, though.
One of the questions that came up is, are we going to get picky about the type of masks that people are wearing? And my answer to that was no.
No.
You know, if they have something covering their face and their mouth and their nose, I'm good. You know, when I was in North Andover, and this is no lie, this is not, this is the job of a town clerk. We actually had a voter walk in North Andover with a pair of underwear on his face. So he was allowed to vote.
Well,
They were trying to ban gay. I have seen the underwear. I think it's hysterical. We're trying to ban gaiters. Do you know what the gaiters are? Is everybody familiar with that?
no.
Yeah,
What is it?
There's those there's like those tubes that the athletes wear.
Yep.
They're like,
Yeah.
You just pull them up. They look like a scarf. They were
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah.
ban those, but the guidance says any face covering, so they can't.
Yep.
Who was trying to ban those?
Oh, it was a
That's
big
interesting.
discussion. It was on the all over the DPH call 2 weeks ago.
Really?
They wanted to get rid of gators, and they said they can't.
I wasn't on that one, I guess, because I don't recall. Interesting. Yeah, no, face covering. So,
Great.
okay.
Yeah, Laura, Jem, I
So,
think. Go ahead.
no, I mean, I think we've covered all of the logistics and questions. So it's a question of ventilation and Laura's kind of discussion, Laura Jem's discussion of logistics. Talk us through with command as well and find out about ventilation, right?
Well, so what I want to confirm is that there's a ventilation system in the field house that sometimes is on and sometimes it's not. I want to make sure that that ventilation, what that does is it pulls air in from the outside. I want to make sure that's on as high as it can possibly be that day. And then also they have the big, huge, what I call cow fans, because you usually see them in the barns.
Yep.
I want to put those at every entrance, and those doors will be left open.
Yep.
Yeah. that's-
So that will be blowing, air in as well.
Yep.
I know that they own 2 of them. I want to see exactly how many they have because I want to get as many as we can in there.
Yep.
And I've already prepared the staff, and I will throughout, because we'll be doing training throughout over the next few weeks via Zoom. Tell them that they are going to have to deal with that fan, because a lot of times what happens is people will sneak over and turn it off because they don't want that fan blowing on them. They're going to have to deal with it, and get them used, set up so that paper doesn't blow and that sort of thing. But yeah, they'll be instructed not to shut those off.
Right. Is there anything else that it would be useful for the board to be thinking about, or
I can't think of anything right now. We have to determine where the supplies are going to come from. As far as I believe it's going to be facilities. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about with command. If that's true, then we'll be good. But other than that, I think I'm all set.
okay.
Great.
So this may not really apply for elections. Although I was going to share with board members too that because we have talked about it in regard to elections, that's why I was reminded of it right now. I was talking to a colleague, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, who is an epidemiologist, and she's also on the task force for reopening Merrimack. And we were just talking about some of the things that we'd considered, like temperature checks and health screenings and things like that. And I was interested in their decision they're testing students every week. And she said some of that came from some research at the time that was confidential from the Broad Institute that's since been released, just showing that masks and social distancing were by far the most important things to implement in order to stop the spread. But we were also talking about how, we've relied, I've taken a lot of guidance from our public health nurse and clinicians. And that on the task force, there's a clinician there and the epidemiologist. And she said they had they totally love each other and our colleagues, but they had a lot of disagreements about surveillance testing. Should it be required to have testing more regularly, given that you can have the false positives or false negatives? And she was really raising the points of that you are, even though there is a risk of a false negative, you're also catching all the people who would be asymptomatic, and up to 40% of people are asymptomatic. So that was one of the reasons that they are they're doing weekly testing. And then with the temperature checks, we had discussed using those, like the laser temp checks. And at the time had thought that because those, people can have temperatures that range, and people can have a fever for other reasons, that maybe it didn't make sense to use temperature checks. But I was kind of reading a little bit more this morning about, there's a peer-reviewed article that came out in May about using the infrared scanners, but then also just what we know about temperatures in general. And it really seems like it's less than 1% of the population who you would erroneously sort of send home for the day if you had done a temperature check on them. And that for those people, you could have them sort of track their temperature and have a note from the doctor that says, oh, this is a person who happens to be in that 1% and runs high. So anyway, I was just kind of raising a couple of those points that I think that I know my decisions on the board have been guided by the concern with the false negatives and variability around temperature testing, but wanted to kind of raise those points since we talked about them with elections and also talked about them with reopening, just sharing that those had influenced my thinking a little bit. So, yeah.
So are you thinking that we should be doing temperature checks for the elections?
Well, I wanted to share that, but given that people who come in, for example, and are not wearing masks, they're still going to have to walk through the field house and walk back to that isolation area. I think if we did do temperature checks, we would do the same thing. Walk back. So the temp checks doesn't catch the 40% of the population who is asymptomatic when they're positive, but it would catch people who may not feel any other symptoms. They may not present in any way when they show up at the field house that would make you lead them to one of the normal booths.
Because that was my thought, is that it's, as far as voters is concerned, I'm not sure it's worth the time or effort because we can't refuse them.
Right.
It may be beneficial to do staff. Although I'm going to cry when we start sending people home because I'm already way short. So, yeah.
I mean, it is so they came to the consensus that a health screening in combination with the laser temp check would make the most sense to do both of them. And you're already planning to do the health screening. You would use a different cutoff. So I can send this article that if you use the infrared forehead scanner, then I think it's a temperature of 96.8 that would be considered a fever. Then they recommend that you take the internal ear temperature, which would be 100.4 generally if this is 96.8. So just an FYI that if you went with that route, you would have to use a different cutoff number. But yeah, I mean, it is something to consider. It's not that you don't have enough other things to consider, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking,
yeah, I hear you.
what about this thing that we haven't thought about?
Let me think on that.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to send articles if you want to read them in your spare time, or sort of condense. I can kind of condense my thinking if that's useful and send to you.
Sure.
Do you have any updates for us, Laura, on the mail-in voting? Has there been a good response and people returning their cards asking for the applications?
We've gotten a ton of the cards back. I can't give you the number yet because we haven't entered into the system or counted them, but my guess is it's close to 4,000 of them.
Wow.
And that's before, because the postcards that went out, as far as I know, have not hit the mailboxes yet that we sent out.
Next Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. So
Everybody.
once they hit the mailboxes, I have a feeling we're going to get a lot more.
I don't know if you signed up with the U.S. mail, but you can get this daily. They actually take a photograph of your mail, and at 8 o'clock each morning, you get a list of here's your mail coming today. I don't know if you go to the U.S. Mail, you could sign up for this service. It's free, and I'm not at home now. I'm on vacation theoretically, but but there's but I got this today at 8 o'clock, and I saw our postcard.
They got mailed out on
Thursday.
was it Thursday?
Yeah.
Thursday. Okay. Well, it's in my mail to come to Reading today.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah. I want to drive by the library and see if they,
Well,
their banner.
the banner, did anybody pick up the banner? Because Jane sent out that email saying that the banner was ready to pick up. And as far as I know, nobody's picked it up yet. Because I was just going to send out an email saying I'll go pick it up today.
Oh, I was assuming Amy was going to pick it up.
I'll touch base with Amy.
Does anyone check to see if that banner needs to be reviewed by building?
Somebody on the call asked about that. And I think Amy said that because they have their own board of trustees or something, they had like, I don't have the right words, but they had like jurisdiction over that window. That's my understanding. But it's a good question.
Yeah, we just want to make sure it's properly secured to the building.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So my understanding is that was what they asked before, and that Amy gave the reason, and I don't think I'm missing.
As long as somebody's looked into it.
Yeah, it had to do, we can double check with Amy. Okay, great. Any other comments or thoughts?
You know,
Yeah.
you know something that's funny that he said about his mail, because I realized I got this Saturday. I already got my ballot.
I got mine too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. I haven't checked the mail today. I haven't seen the post.
I got it on Saturday.
I got mine last week, early, Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
Great. Great.
So the postcard's out and the press release, I don't know if anybody had any, I didn't have any comments. I don't know if anybody had any changes. So we will share that with command then, and then we'll be good to go, or?
Right. I sent that to Jane last night. So actually, while I'm thinking about it, maybe I should send her just confirmation that that should go to command. I think Jane's actually planning to call into the command meeting, but I will CC. Great. And then reopening protocols and mask distribution were the only things that we had on here. So for the reopening protocols, I just wanted to circle back with everyone. So on July 20th, we had come to the decision that we would, instead of rewriting the needing protocols and having everybody implement those, we would require that people fill out the office spaces checklist and then add an addendum for any sections where there was some question or inability to check off that part, and then the board would have a conversation about them with them to figure out a solution. And my understanding was that that was going to be communicated to department heads. So I just wanted to circle back with everyone, and maybe this is a better discussion for command.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gone out yet, although I think we talked about it last Monday. So maybe, I guess that didn't include all the department heads. So like DPW wasn't on that call and things like that. But yeah, I think unless anyone's heard difference, maybe it makes sense to circle back with command about that today to kind of figure out status. Okay.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Eleanor, for putting that on the agenda, because that was my question as well, was what was the status? Had it been implemented? Had staff been noticed on the training and, you know, signs and so forth? So
Great. And then Laura Vlasic had mentioned the, oh, sorry, any more comments about that? Okay. Laura Vlasic had the idea to do a kid mask distribution. So I was just putting that, we had delayed that agenda item pending some logistics questions, but I don't think I have a sense from board members if that's something that you, I mean, it seems like that might be something that the town would do. That, you know, I don't think that would be sponsored by the Board of Health. We didn't sponsor the last one, but we, I mean, in any sort of way, it wasn't our idea.
right. I mean, certainly, I think if there's capacity to do it, if there's the resources for it, it sounds like a fine idea. I know that families are, you know, worried about ear loops, and I think there's been a lot of families trying to sort out the best way for face coverings to work for their children. But certainly, if the town was interested in pursuing that, I think that is a
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might make sense to do that a week. I mean, this would be a week or two after the start of in-person classes, to see if there's a large proportion of students who are struggling with their mask, don't have the right mask, don't come in with a mask and have to be given one. I mean, I don't have a good sense of the scope of the problem, if there is a problem. And so, you know, if once the in-person schooling starts, then and there is a big problem, then maybe a mass distribution for children would be useful.
That makes sense.
I agree with.
Okay. All right. So I think that I see that some members of command have already joined. Also, Jane, hi, we just talked about you and sent you an email. Sorry. Oh, I don't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I saw the email. Yeah, that
Okay.
Greg should approve, command should approve.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just sent it to you without remembering that. And board members just reminded me, thankfully.
Yeah, nope, that's great.
So the only two things, the things I had put at the bottom of our agenda for talking about once command was here, we can continue our conversation about election safety, and then we can talk about school reopening. I don't know if people had a chance to look at that document. There is an executive summary at the top. It's incredibly comprehensive. It's like 65 pages or something.
Yes.
Do you think it would make sense with schools joining us to talk about the face mask giveaway idea in collaboration with schools?
Sure, yeah.
Certainly.
They might already be planning something. That's
Right.
Yeah, I think that was something that had come up before too. We don't know whether or not they may have ordered. And again, I mean, I think the seniors mask distribution was something that came from the town, so.
Shane, real quick, before everything gets started, has the banner been picked up?
I don't think so. Amy was gonna go pick it up. What's the status on the invoice? Jean, did you put that invoice through for processing?
no.
Okay.
So the $269 for the banner itself is going to come out of the election budget, correct?
You can, whoever wants to come out of. Yeah, I thought either that or library.
All right, I'll touch base with Amy.
Is somebody who was on the planning committee going to sign off on the invoice? That's kind of what I was wondering. I haven't been involved in the postcard thing, so I don't really.
Sign off on it. I can
Okay.
come in, I'll print it off, and you want me to print off a hard copy and sign it?
I don't even care if you just scan it and send it to me with initials on it, because
Okay.
I know nothing about it.
Happy to. Happy
Okay.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to. I will do that. And then Laura,
Text me today, I can put it in for the bill roll tomorrow.
yeah, I will. I'll come as soon as we're done here. I'll come straight in, and we'll do it there. So the banner can be picked up. I just want to be able to tell Connolly that it's going through our procurement process. It's going through our payment process, and give them kind of an idea of when they'll get that check. But they've done this a ton of times before. It's their thing, but we have a good relationship with them. So
Yeah, we'll get them paid.
Oh yeah. So that'll be good. Okay, so we'll do that. Not a problem. And Laura, thank you, by the way, for your edits to the communications campaign, to the calendar. I appreciate that. There's a lot of complexity and overlapping dates. And so we're going to have to align those pieces.
There is one concern that I have, that now that you mention that, is that the town has never been involved with campaigning election stuff as strongly as we are now. I want to make sure that doesn't come back on us with the fact that we're really pushing an election, such as a recall election. So we need to just be aware of that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, right. One thing we had talked about was having the town insignia on communications. I don't know whether it would make sense in future, like not to have it on there if we are really wanting to separate the board health, saying you need to do mail-in voting, to make it clear that the town is not pushing.
The Reading Board of Health, I think it's apropos.
So anyway, yeah, that was one way that I thought to separate the two, but yeah, I understand. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good point Laura raises.
Mhm.
If we always continue to tie into the health related issue and the pandemic issue, and keep that the central message at all times, that because this is a centennial pandemic and we haven't dealt with that in the past either. So it's not a little while.
Right.
So I think as long as we keep that narrative very tight and precise and our messaging very consistent, then that will be the effort. That is the focus, and it is not political. And people will raise that question, and that's a legitimate question. You validate, yep, we haven't done that in the past, and here's why we're doing it now. Health-related issues, and maybe we should do more in the future, but we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, the focus is on public health.
Right.
So.
Great. Yeah. So we can go ahead and turn this over to command, unless there are any other board health related questions, comments. Nope. Okay. So turn it over to you.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
So we have a few issues this morning. Nothing big. So one of the things was starting today, we're going to have notes of our meetings that are going to be made. Jane's going to do that for us, and also they'll be communicated to the Board of Selectmen. And I've heard that the Board of Health. Well, I wanted to ask the Board of Health: do you want to keep meeting with us each week, or do you want to space these meetings out, say every other week?
Well, I'll go first. So I actually haven't, I guess, had a chance to say this to all of you in person. One thing that I had said from the beginning of the time that I became chair is that I knew that my professional role was really going to ramp up in the fall, as I'll be teaching a lot more courses than I have before. And I was not going to be able to commit to the board for more than a monthly meeting. And given that I would want to be able to participate fully. I have decided that it makes sense for me to resign from the Board of Health as of August 17th, which is when a new chair will be chosen. There's a board reorg. I've been completely honored and so glad to be able to serve the town in this way, and I have absolutely loved this board, being on this board, but my just professional role doesn't allow me to continue in this capacity after that. So I leave it up to the board. We are currently scheduled to meet next Monday at 10. We're posted to meet. But that will be, so the next Monday will be the date of the board reorg.
So my personal preference would be to continue to participate weekly in command meetings. I think that it's useful and valuable. I think it's important to keep up with sort of what the rhythm is. So that is my personal preference, and how I would say.
We have 2 members who are not present today as well.
Okay.
Are the command meetings going to, is the question whether the command meetings themselves should go to every other week? Is that what the question is?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
so,
didn't-
right, so then potentially the board could meet every other week if we wanted to continue. I would agree with Eleanor, it might be a good idea to get through this reorg and leave it up to the prerogative of the new chair in, perhaps in making that decision with the board. Is that what you're proposing, Eleanor?
Yep. Meet next Monday and then decide at that point.
Right.
I could just add some background, and this is something you can take or leave. It's just information. We have 3 other applications pending, if you will, to the Board of Health, but none of those 3 could make a daytime meeting commitment. So just think about that going forward for the Board of Health. Doesn't mean there can't be other applicants, but we're all living day to day. That's just another thing to think about, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could definitely be something to maybe do next Monday, to choose a different schedule.
Eleni, you've done a great job as chairman. I really appreciate working with you. I'm sorry to see you stepping down.
Thank you.
I can understand it with the workload. It's got to be a tremendous workload in addition to your professional life. So,
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to serve. I've really appreciated working with all of you. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, sorry, I wasn't thinking I was going to tell you right now, so I hadn't really thought through what I was going to say, but thank you.
I just thought that where things were just kind of slowing down, that maybe give the board a little bit of a break, the meeting with us each week, but that's fine. We can wait till the next reorg and then see where it goes, and can always be changed at another time. Yeah. I did turn down the speaker here, that they're busy, so you don't need to be listening to those activities too. Okay, we'll jump to the next item, status of community events. And we just wanted to touch base with Dr. Doherty on where he currently is with his school reopening plans.
So according to the plans, we're opening up in 3 weeks. So we submitted to the school committee for Thursday night, and they voted unanimously to approve the phased-in hybrid model. So now that's the first step. We'll be submitting those this week to DESE, we're gonna make a few changes, nothing earth shattering, just based on the feedback that we had last week. I think I sent that to the board, or I sent it to you, Eleanor, to send to the board.
You did.
It was much more detailed than the preliminary plans that you saw a couple of weeks ago. The phase-in plan, which we haven't discussed here, allows us to test all our systems over the month of September. So that was the reason why we went with the phase-in. Everyone will be remote until it's time for them to start phasing in hybrid. Certainly, all of this is going to be dependent on the current conditions when we start. Teachers will be starting August 31st. There'll be 10 days of training around a variety of topics, including health and safety. And then the first day of school will be September 15th. So that's the summary. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. All extracurricular right now, well, athletics at least, is on hold until September 14th. We're awaiting further guidance from DESE, hopefully this week on that.
So, Dr. Doherty, can I say, so we don't need to worry about the crossing guards yet until we hear further when they start the hybrid model?
Yeah, September 15th would be when the earliest that the crossing guards would be needed. That's when kids start coming back, but the traffic will be very low.
Okay.
I don't even know if you're going to need them. Well, you probably will need them at every school, because we are going to have high need students at all the schools to start on the 15th.
Okay.
And one of the items that might be slightly different is we're encouraging parents to drive as opposed to transport. So special ed students as well as reg ed students, we're strongly recommending parents transport students rather than bus them. So we don't know yet where parents are going to go, so you may have more car traffic for drop off.
Gotcha.
When you mentioned that, do you personally get in touch with the Voc School parents?
We do not.
No.
I don't know who, I can try to see who my counterpart is there and see if they're doing any type of outreach.
Yeah, the only communication I really get involved with is not the Wakefield Voc School, but other Voc schools, and I think there's 2 right now, for transportation. So, and as I think communicating with the Voc schools from town hall is very, very, very challenging.
Well, we still don't know how many students go there, so.
Yes, exactly. I hope they're all doing well.
The only part which would still come through the Voc school is, which we can talk about, is if you're mandated to transport them, if parents transport them, they're eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah.
So we'd be cutting checks to parents.
And that's why I asked, because I would assume that town hall would cut those checks for those parents, not you.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. John, you mentioned extracurricular. Does that encompass your after-school programs, not just athletics?
So the plan right now, you're talking about extended day, Bob?
Yeah.
So extended day, our plan right now is to offer it for the students that are in person. That's the plan.
How about kindergarten?
So kindergarten, we're hoping, and we're working it out with the building principals, we're hoping to be able to have kindergarten in both weeks instead of hybrid, similar to Rise Preschool. It's a space issue right now that we're trying to figure out if we can do it. The biggest challenge is right now is Birch Meadow, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. Did you feel like you were writing another dissertation with this?
Yeah, yes, I did. But I had a lot of help with this one.
I was very, yeah. Thank you for all of that. And I appreciate you sharing it with the Board of Health too. The couple things that I thought about when reading through it I just talked to some board members. I had a conversation recently with an epidemiologist colleague of mine who is on the task force at opening Merrimack College, and she said that she and the other clinician on the task force had a lot of conversations about things like temperature checks and about testing, and the difference between using the COVID test as a diagnostic tool, which is not a great one, and doing surveillance testing to sort of catch asymptomatic people. And I know that the Board of Health, the Board of Health has been you have welcomed collaboration with us in the past on this, and I think we've taken a lot of direction from our clinician, our public health nurse, and I think that has been the way that I've been thinking about it. And after those conversations, I was reading a little bit more the conversations with the epidemiologist, because Merrimack is requiring weekly testing. I have looked up a few articles about the temperature checks and in particular, like the laser forehead readings versus other means of doing temp checks, and then some thoughts about surveillance testing instead of using COVID to do diagnostic testing. So I thought I could just kind of compile some of that. One of it was an article, peer-reviewed journal article that just came out in May. So it's not something that we would have had back in March to even be thinking about. So I'm happy to forward that along,
sure.
If any of that's interesting or useful.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything more in school reopening?
Greg, the only other thing, and at some point, I know, and it's, this would have been pre-COVID, we would have been doing this, but at some point, we should sit down and talk about what drills are going to look like in this new world, particularly fire drills.
Yes, yeah.
And how you want to handle those, because I'm assuming we are still obligated to do those, and rightfully so, but we're only going to have half the students in the school. We just want to talk about what that looks like and when you want to do that. So we can set that up.
Yes, yep, okay, happy to have a discussion about that. Yeah, we do still have to do them, obviously, and we'll talk about it and how to implement it. Okay, we'll jump to an update on the Board of Health Public Information Campaign to encourage mail-in voting. I know we talked, when I came on, you were talking a little bit about it. So there was a committee put together to do a plan for communications that involved first a postcard for going out, second a calendar of events, because there's going to be electronic communication and also the message boards with information going out. So Jane, do you want to talk a little bit about the plan? You put most of it together in conjunction with Laura. And then I thought Laura could give us an update of where her concerns over it.
Okay. So I don't, if you want to, I don't have the art up now. So what we've done is we've worked to develop a couple of different things, a campaign calendar that talks about that speaks to the times and modalities and channels that we will use to communicate critical dates in the upcoming election. So when the last date to register to vote, the last day to request a mail-in ballot, how you return your ballots, all of that information targeted at the mail-in voting in particular, according to the Board of Health's order, and some decisions that are made. So I sent out a 2-page calendar last week. There's some edits on it, but there was a draft that the Board of Health could work with. I don't know if you made any edits to the draft. So there's a lot of overlap. There'll be a lot of communication that comes out, and it includes electronic light boards, digital reminders, website, social media, etc. We worked with a local print company to turn our conceptual design into a logo, and the library, we've printed a banner, and that's going to be hung up at the library facing Middlesex Ave. We'll have the collateral to put online, and then the cards, the mail-in ballot cards that were drafted have been mailed. So they've been taken to the post office. They were mailed last week. So they're out. We have the invoice. We're going to pay that bill, and this train is running.
A huge thank you to you, Jane and Laura, and all the members of that planning committee who worked together so well and so quickly to get that out the door and in the right colors so that we weren't
there was
any other political colors. So that was fantastic. Thank you. And also thank you to resident Teddy Asher, who came up with the sort of idea and an earlier draft timeline. So
yep.
You guys have all been fantastic. Thank you. And to Chief Burns for putting the planning committee together once the Board of Health had was really hoping that could happen. So thank you.
We anticipate that the mailer will drop this week. So folks should see it sometime this week, show up. And we'd love to know from the locals when you get it. So it could be sent to the bulk center in North Reading. And we chose not to use first class postage because it wasn't going to make a big difference in when it would arrive in people's homes. So we didn't feel we needed to spring for the extra postage. It's just our company day. And then also today we will put that logo up on the website and on social media and let folks know that ballots will begin to be sent by U.S. mail starting today. Correct, Laura?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. So what the intention is that the look and feel comes across through multiple channels and reminds people give them that visual cue that mail-in voting is something we can do, and we have the resources to do that here to stay safe in the pandemic. Anything else?
So I just wanted to, Greg, when you came in, we were talking about a concern of that in the past and in the future, the town doesn't necessarily get involved with advertising elections as much as we are now. So we just want to make sure that the message is more we're promoting the vote by mail and vote safe versus promoting the election itself, because the town needs to appear neutral when it comes to elections themselves.
Okay. Good.
Laura,
All
you're
right.
planning. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick question. You're going to, as part of the COVID-19 update to the select board tomorrow night, are you still planning to spend a couple of minutes talking about the election?
Sure. I didn't know I was, but sure.
Oh, sorry. A few weeks ago, we talked briefly about it.
Okay.
By email.
Okay. If I can get the link sent to me so I can attend the meeting, sure thing.
Do you need a Board of Health representative tomorrow night?
For the 2-minute update, that would be great.
Unless anyone else wants to volunteer, I would like to do that since it would be my last one.
It's yours. Absolutely.
I'm underlining 2 minutes twice, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, anything more on the plan to encourage mail-in voting?
I would just add that as long as we, to Laura's point, the effort is to stay focused on the public health aspect of it, because it will come up. I'm sure we'll start hearing about it. Once we post this, people will go onto their Facebook pages and have commentary. And so the focus, just so to everybody, is that it's a public health focus to enable all voters to participate so and safely. Safely. So it's help keep Reading healthy, mail-in ballot, etc.
Do you see other ways to do that other than what we've planned? I mean, the board has approved a press release, but do you see if there's commentary on all over Facebook, would you foresee at some later point I don't know, the board clarifying the rationale, or I guess I'm just asking, are there other things that you're thinking right now might need to happen later to help keep that delineation clear? We're talking here about a specific pandemic related reason that you would be voting differently this year.
I would mention it tomorrow night at the select board meeting. I would, yeah, that you should always mention it whenever, if it ever comes up, mention it. It's for public health, so everybody can participate safely. It's not promoting, you know, one election over another or anything like that. It's all tied to critical dates, you know, that are set by the state, all of that stuff. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. And then did you see, Greg, did you want to review the press release?
Yeah, I'd like you to send me the finalized information that was approved by the Board of Health. And then, because command needs to approve it, and then before it hits the website.
Okay, Eleanor, do you have an updated version to make edits to what we sent?
No one had any edits, and everyone approved it.
And I just had the one edit that I sent to you, Jane. Did you? I believe you fixed that.
Wait.
Which one was
Let me
it?
make sure. I may not have heard from Kevin. Oh, but I heard from all voting members. Does that procedurally, is that fine? Whoever would know that.
Kevin said that he was, unless there was an issue, he, you know.
Right. That's right. He did say that during the meeting. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, Laura, I remember we discussed on Friday the change, and I incorporated that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to, I'll open it and send it to everybody momentarily.
Greg, while you're on this sort of related topic of communication, you forwarded an email this morning at 10:56 about revised gatherings order. Do we want to talk about that now?
That was an email from Laura regarding the governor's recent orders on gatherings, and she's requesting to have that posted to the town's website.
Yeah, we talked about that at this morning's meeting too. Yeah, Laura, thank you for that forward. I think our consensus was that it makes sense to go ahead and post the contents of that email, which had a few different links related to the governor's announcement on Friday.
Yeah.
I have two questions, not specifically necessarily on this information. One is, for lack of a better word, how do you handle protests with the size going from 100 to 50? We've never really received clear guidance on gatherings like that in the public. In some cases, we have no role and no real ability, but in some cases we may. So I just wasn't sure what our responsibility was.
Good question. Yeah, let me pull up, I can pull up the actual language for that. It said for reasons of political expression, I think, that they still recommended social distancing, but the gatherings limit didn't apply. But let me actually find the language and then I can screen share.
I know that was past language and I didn't see whether it was continued. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah, let me look it up.
Okay, no, that's fine. I take you, I trust you for it. I'll take your word. And the other was, I just want to bring this up, and I don't know if the board has discussed it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but the new travel orders require a COVID test to be given 72 hours before returning to Massachusetts, within less than 72 hours. Managers are really concerned that would apply to a visitor of the state, but not to a resident of the state. One would suppose a resident of the state and one of your employees should be tested after they return to the state and be quarantined before they're allowed back to work. Otherwise, you're exposing them to the last 3 days of vacation plus the trip back, perhaps on an airplane. So it just makes no sense. I'm going to discuss this tomorrow with the state, but I didn't know if the board had gone through that logic at all.
So we hadn't discussed with the board, but I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. The first is you're talking about it being applicable only to visitors? And
No,
then
I'm saying
second, the
that,
question
well,
about time frame?
I don't know the state's original intent, but it's clearly applying to everyone.
Yes.
Visitors, residents, everyone, the same
Yes.
language and the same protocol. It seems as if it may have been written for travelers, for visitors, and then just, by the way, residents, you do the same thing. That's the way it actually reads, because some of us have had this discussion. So I didn't know if the Board of Health had any views on that, or whether you had heard any discussion in your circles.
So the idea is that if you travel out of this, if you're coming back from an out-of-state trip and you have your COVID test 2 days before you get on the plane, now you're getting on you have a clean COVID, but it's from 2 days ago. Now you're on the plane and now you're traveling, and so it doesn't capture that.
I mean, I'm away for 7 days, Saturday to Saturday, maybe 8 days. First 5 days, I'm enjoying my vacation. Then I have a test, and then I have 3 more days of vacation plus the trip home. And all that last stuff is exposure. It's not covered.
So that's where the quarantine comes into force, right? Because it's a
But you can have a
multi-pronged.
negative test that comes back before those last parts of your journey, and then the quarantine does not apply.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Because
You know what I mean?
you could either do the
You can
72-hour
test it
test or you can do the 14-day quarantine. Yeah. I
Right.
think I think it's a good question, and it probably warrants another discussion. Maybe we can add this to the Thursday night's Board of Health agenda.
I just wasn't sure if you had had the discussion or heard anything. I'll update you after tomorrow's call with the state if I hear anything.
Great.
Well, I have a question also, because I reached out to the state and left them a message first thing this morning. If you travel and you do fill out the letter, you know how you have to go on the state and fill out where you were and that you're going to be quarantined for 14 days or that you didn't take the test, does the town find out who the people in town are that are supposed to be quarantined? Does that appear on Maven? And if there's a complaint, so if somebody went on vacation and they filled out the form like they were supposed to, but they're not adhering to that 14-day rule, there's actually a link on the state website where it says, okay, contact your local Board of Health. Click on here, and it tells you the name of the person so you can plug in any town you want. And it tells you who to contact in that town to tell them that you've noticed that this person isn't adhering to the 14 days.
Yep.
But they don't tell us how we're supposed to follow up on that. So my questions to the state were, does the local health department get notified if someone has traveled? How do we get notified? Does that come in Maven, or are we going to get a special email every time somebody fills that out? Do they get reported to the public health nurse? Do they get reported to the health agent? Where does that information go so that we can keep an eye out for it? And if someone does complain, how do we follow up on that?
Yeah, I have notes. I'm trying to find them more from that call. There was a notification mechanism.
Yep. But it doesn't tell you what to do once you get it.
I'm saying that part of the process is that there is a notification to the Board of Health about travel. What was also said was that that notification was not sent with the expectation that public health should be reaching out to people just because you know that they have traveled, that it's a notice that that it wasn't intended to add to contact tracing work or so forth. But yes, there will be a notification. Right. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that. I heard you say something different. Okay. So,
but if there's a complaint, how do you follow up on that complaint and who's getting notified? They never said who was getting notified or how we're supposed to follow up. So if anybody knows, please.
Well, wait. So the notification said if you click the form and it tells you who to send it to. So that should be accurate.
No, the form goes to the state.
for each, but it has for the community that you're in, yes. This is an
So who's
operational thing. We don't need to, I understand your questions, but, so it sounds like Bob's gonna have a conversation and you've already raised the question, Laura. I know that the state shared their HR protocols as just a suggestion to communities if they were curious about how to operationalize this. I don't know if that was shared broadly beyond the local health call participants. I'm happy to forward that if that's new news to
I think that sounds good. Yeah.
our town administrators.
Yeah, I think that could be helpful. But
Yeah, send it along.
and so what I can do is I can add this. I think these questions make sense. I can add this to the Thursday Board of Health agenda. If we can get that posted, I guess before tomorrow night, that we can add this discussion so that we know when we'll receive any notifications, how, and then recommendations for how to follow up.
Could I bring up a question that the Board of Health may have already covered, but if so, please just let me know. And related to the governor's updates on Friday, if I read it correctly, polling places still are distinct, or at least the ability to vote doesn't have the same, I guess, mask requirement. What about for people waiting in line to vote? And also for anyone that is in the building with them. So whether they're poll workers, police officers, building maintenance, volunteers, well, I guess that'd be poll workers. What are the rules related to that? Are we clear on how that's going to be handled at this point?
We're definitely clear on how it's going to be handled. The staff, we can force the staff to wear masks, including the facilities, police, anybody that's inside the polling area. We can suggest that voters wear a mask. We cannot turn them away. So if a voter comes in and refuses to wear a mask, we still have to let them vote.
Right. If they're waiting in line, do we need a special way to handle?
We're kind of working that out to have a naughty spot for them.
Yeah, we're thinking of an isolation booth that's at least 6 feet away from other poll workers. We did not discuss any guidelines around people waiting outside, so Laura was very clear that anyone inside the field house, working, police, any of that, will have masks on. But we didn't discuss anything outside the field house where people will be waiting in line. Should we?
So I guess what guidelines are the police going to be following in terms of having people in line, distanced, in cars versus in, I know at one point there was a discussion of people waiting in cars, and then a group of people would then come out of their cars and be able to get into line. I guess I'm wondering what thoughts are there on that?
So the way that the field house is being set up is it's going to be set up differently than normal as far as entrances and exits. Can I go ahead and share my screen and we'll pull this up?
Yeah, and you might also mention, Laura, after you get done, the response you're getting for the mail-in voting.
Okay.
Very heavy response.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So while I'm pulling this up, I'll actually mention that, as Jean, that's a good idea, that we have, so we have not entered all of the response cards into the system yet, but I would say I'd guesstimate that we have close to 4,000 cards back, and that's before the mailing has gone out that the Board of Health is sending out promoting it. So we have 20,000 registered voters, approximately 20,000 registered voters, and if we do have 4,000 cards back already, that's a pretty high percentage of mail-in ballots.
Great.
So that's definitely, I think if you think about it, the percentage of a voter turnout for a primary has never been over 10%. So I think the mail-in is actually going to increase our turnout big time.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that there's a plan in place, Mark, for the voting that makes it efficient for the voters to get in and get out. You know, and what the traffic flow walking in is going to look like, and then coupled with the effort to have people do mail-in voting, that reduces the amount of people there. So it all kind of comes together to reduce people waiting in line.
Thanks.
So the changes that's being made at the field house itself is that so this represents the field house. This over here, kind of to the side, represents the lobby of the field house. And then this over here on the side represents a hallway. The voters will be coming in that are precincts 5 through 8 will be coming in this entrance, which we typically don't use. It's the side near where facilities offices. So the line will be going through that hallway and then outside, and they'll be expected to be kept 6 feet apart. And we can mark the floor at the 6 feet to where everybody needs to be standing. And then the same thing in the lobby. Precincts 1 through 4 is going to be coming in the entrance through the lobby, and the line will be going out this way and then outside, and again being kept 6 feet apart. So, you know, if they choose to wait in their car until the line goes down, that's their choice. But we're just going to concentrate on the line going out the lobby and going through this hallway. It's designed so that precincts 5 through 8 come in this entrance, they go into their precinct, they vote, they come out, and they exit out through the entrance, the 2 entrances off the parking lot. 5 through 8 goes out this way, and 1 through 4 goes out this way. So there's no way that they're walking through the field house any more than they need to.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns or suggestions on the setup? One of the things so over the weekend, I talked to the Board of Health about this. Well, over the weekend, I had 2 Zoom meetings with poll workers that were concerned and had questions about the precautions that were taken. And they had some suggestions. And one of the things that they had asked, and I'm probably not going to do, is that we take and get rid of this walkway and make the precincts even wider. But one of the things that we've already done is that the precincts in the past have been 20 feet in width. Now they're 22. And I'm not sure what the length was before, but now it's up to 90. We've increased the length quite a bit so that there's a lot more space within the guardrails of each one of the precincts. And the reason why I'm saying I'm not going to do that is because I'm thinking about closing this off and using it for processing the mail-in ballots that we have to process down at the field house in public view. Instead of having this area down here, I'll have it here in the center. That'll give those that are processing the mail-in ballots a lot more room. Any thoughts on that? I failed to mention that to the Board of Health.
Well, it looks like you still maintain the 6-foot distance. Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead. Bob, did you have something?
No, I like your idea of using that middle lane, if you will, for that reason.
Yeah, I'm thinking it'll have add more space.
Is there a space or a distance requirement for observers for that specific function?
That's another thing that actually came up over the weekend when I was talking with the election staff. So I'm required by law to let the observers in. I have to find a place to put them and keep them 6 feet apart. What I can do though is limit how many observers I let in. and I've already made the decision that it's going to be one per precinct. So in hopes that we don't get any. And I'm not quite sure. The only thing I can think of is that I will probably put them right here. But that still, kind of exposes this one to being more than or closer than 6 feet. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them yet. But we're all gonna go to bed the night before the election and hope that we don't have any observers. Anything else? Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen now. Any other questions or anything?
All right, we'll jump to the next
I guess
item.
a quick question. Are
Yep.
you okay on poll workers?
No, that's part of the reason why I did the Zoom call, is to try to reassure them that we were taking all the precautions and the safety measures that we were doing. It did help with a couple of them. But as of right now, I have about half of what I need.
Wow. Okay.
There is an organization that works out of Andover that has offered to provide volunteers to do like traffic control and help with sanitizing. I'm going to reach out to them and see if we can get some help that way. They can't be sworn in as election workers. They can't have access to the ballots, but they can help with the guiding folks and doing all the cleanup and sanitizing and that sort of thing. So that I can probably get about 8 people, maybe 10 people from there, which would be very helpful. So put out the word for anybody that's willing to work, would be very helpful.
Laura, how old do you have to be a poll worker?
As of today, they have to be 18 and a registered voter. As of August 15th, if I'm still short, the new law has put in a provision that I can hire teenagers.
Okay, because school would not have started yet.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
an option.
So who would I reach out with at the school to help try to promote some of the teenagers to come in and work?
You could, it would be Kate Boynton. I could also send something out as well to the high school parents.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so if you write it, I'll send it.
Okay, I'll do that. We can't send it until the 15th, but
Right.
Yeah. Definitely. So can I go into some of the questions that I had for command now, or is this a good time, Greg?
Sure.
So there's some things that we had talked about that we're doing that I'm not quite sure what my role is to make sure that this happens, or if command's taking care of it and that sort of thing. And one is signs. We need to make sure that we put plenty of signage out in the parking lot to make sure that we promote that the precincts 5 through 8 park on one side of the building and precincts 1 through 4 park on the other side. Am I ordering those signs? Is the command taking care of that? And if so, I just need to work with somebody to decide what signs I need to order. We also talked about putting the signboards up throughout the area to promote mail-in vote. I'm assuming the police department will take care of that. And then also, if we can move those signs on election day to help use those for traffic flow, is the police department going to take care of that as well? Do you want me to keep going with my questions, or do we want to answer them one at a time?
Well, all of that stuff should be in the plan, Laura. All the stuff with the signs, what the signs say, where they're supposed to be, should all be in the plan. And then it goes to logistics to make sure that gets carried, operations, to make sure that gets carried out. And logistics will get the signs, and operations will make sure that stuff happens. So as for the moving the signboards and everything, that will all be taken care of, part of operations, implementing that plan.
So I guess the question is the police department writing the plan? Am I guess because there is no written plan at this point as far as the traffic flow and where the signs are going to go.
Did Scouten email you what he's come up with already? He did have a traffic outside plan. We did make that already.
As far as I know, no, but
Okay, so-
I'm behind on emails, so.
Oh, it's okay. We can send you that, and then I think you two could, and me could work together on where to put the signs or how many we need.
Okay,
And then we can submit that to command if that's how you want to do it.
that would be awesome. Okay,
I know Paul Jackson was working with this and working with you with it, so that there should be a plan, a draft plan in place already. So I'll have him send it back out, and then the blanks need to be filled in, and then that should all be implemented by operations, and the materials should be gotten by logistics. So that's the whole reason for this, because there's a lot of moving parts, and that's the whole reason for putting it in place. The website gets updated and all of that. So I'll touch base on that today, and we'll make sure that we'll get that draft plan to you, and then you can review and make sure everything is there, and then we'll have a plan in place to have everything happen when it's supposed to happen.
Do you want us to send you, Greg, what we've put together so far for our traffic? I don't know if.
Yes, yeah, we definitely need to traffic. Yeah,
send it-
definitely need a traffic plan, and I think Paul Jackson will work with.
Scotty, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
so one of the other questions I have with that too is that, or one of the thoughts that I have or concerns is, so typically at an election, as far as police, we generally have 4 on staff. We have 3 outside and 1 inside. I'm a little bit concerned that we may need more for these elections, simply because we're going to have to police the entrances to make sure that we don't have folks trying to sneak their way in at the wrong entrance and that sort of thing, because we know that's going to be happening. So when Scouten creates the plan for the number of police on duty, I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. So in other words, we need more than 4.
Yeah, we had 5 the last one. I think we upped it to 7 for this plan, if that works.
Yeah, I think that would work. Yeah.
And we could show you, I'll send you the map that he made with where each police officer is going to be.
Perfect. And then we need to put together kits for, I noticed that there's nobody on here from facilities, but we need to put together the kits for the election staff. So I'm assuming I'm going to get the supplies for those kits from facilities. Is that true?
Yeah, all PPE comes from facilities. I think, Laura, what really needs to happen is we need to put together a planning meeting with you, the police, fire, facilities, on what you need done, and then iron it out that way.
Okay.
And then it'll all happen for you.
Okay, so should I put together that meeting?
Yeah,
Or
you
are
can.
you gonna? All right, so
You can.
facilities.
I'll be happy to do it for you, but you can.
No, if you're willing to do it, please.
Yep. Okay. So we'll schedule something this week for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Ideally
then-
within the next couple of days.
Okay, that would be awesome. And then also too, just to make sure it doesn't get forgotten, and we can talk about this during that meeting, is that some of the concern that the election staff has had is when I did the Zoom meeting over the weekend, is ventilation within the field house. We need to make sure that we get as many of those big, what I refer to as cow fans, at the doors, and make sure that the exhaust, the ventilation is as high as it can possibly be in that building. And then I also need to work with somebody about the snack shack too.
Okay. All right. All right, so we'll get together a meeting to put together a team and then address these issues and get it down in writing so everything happens.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else on voting?
One big party.
Yeah.
And Laura, we'll know hopefully soon about our food distribution if we're able to continue it. And if we are, I'm going to see if I can push the date from Tuesday to maybe Thursday or Friday that week if we're allowed to do it. I think that's going to add 100 more cars coming through that area on an already congested day. So we're waiting for Desi, but I'll let you know if we can move it.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that's good for now.
Okay. The next item up, financial and budgetary issues. We've filed our request with FEMA for reimbursement for costs incurred from March until the end of May, and then an estimation of what we think we're going to need going forward. So that's been in and submitted. So we'll see what happens with that. I received a notification from MEMA over the weekend that we're going to be receiving a large shipment of PPE this week, and facilities is going to be able to go down and pick that up for us. They say it's a very large shipment. I don't have a details on how many of each type of equipment, but that's a big savings to the town that we're getting that from the state. And then on goal 1, determining residents that need assistance, I touched base with Kevin Bomiller today for the elderly population, and it still hasn't been any requests for relief from the heat. Jean, do you have anything to add?
No, I think given the COVID-19, from what we keep hearing from this population, they're being very, very cautious. And it probably seems strange that we haven't had any inquiries, but if I had to guess, and it probably is more of a guess, why we haven't, it's because every time we've asked that population if they're fearful, they've told us pretty much loud and clear that they are. They're fearful of the virus and of being in a group setting. So that's it's not that surprising given what we know from that population.
Great. That's all I had. Does anybody else want to bring something up while we're all together?
Chief, in terms of the meeting and getting minutes together and getting them to the select board, I know it's going to be either me or Jane, depending on availability. Is the protocol that we get the notes and we get them to you and you give them to the select board, or do we give them to Bob or directly to the chairman? Has that been discussed at all?
No, we didn't discuss it. I thought we just send them to Bob and then have Bob distribute from there.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to see who was supposed to get them. We can send them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to just piggyback on that. Currently, our minutes are at 1,035 words. I didn't know if you had a particular format for minutes, but we've pretty much captured everything here. So, okay. I'll edit them a bit and send them to Bob.
So if
I would
that's,
imagine that this would be helpful for the Board of Health, which is also doing minutes. So we'll just make sure we share it with them.
so remind us again, how do we incorporate Board of Health with these minutes?
I would say what Jane is doing and talking about and Matt is talking about is really just for the select board's information. It's not formal, but the same document could be used in a formal way by the Board of Health for their meeting minutes if they choose. They can amend, they can change, it's just a draft set of minutes. But it may help out, in formulating their meeting minutes.
Sorry, just to clarify, so it's a draft template for meeting minutes?
It's whatever format Jane comes up with.
Oh, okay.
Minutes is probably not the accurate word, but
Summary.
it's a drop down of a lot of information to be shared. Okay. To be shared with the board for use of your minutes, perhaps to be shared with the select board and the community.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, there's no point in duplicating, taking minutes by someone like Jane or Matt, and then someone either on the Board of Health. We're working as a hybrid between Board of Health members taking some loose notes, and then we're going to bring on some admin staff to assist in finalizing. So just trying to simplify.
Yeah, we can work that out. And Eleanor, I know I owe you a call. I'll make sure I catch up to you by tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
I think, and I don't know, maybe this is in relation to what you're thinking of talking about. The only other thing that we had talked about during our Board of Health meeting was the reopening protocols. And I don't know, Bob, if this is what you were thinking of talking about tomorrow, but just wanted to kind of find out the status of that. On the July 20th, we had, the Board of Health had finalized their decision, which was to have all buildings just do the checklist for office spaces and then do an addendum if there was some reason they couldn't check that off, and then the board would meet with them. So just kind of circling back about that status to find out is there something we should do to communicate that, or?
No, I think we're all set. The checklist list was, and by the way, your email sent a second time was very helpful.
Oh.
The checklist is pretty simple. We actually are having a department head, assistant department head meeting Thursday. One of the topics will be public back in town hall, for instance. So that's when we next anticipate asking the Board of Health for some help. I can't say, it won't be Thursday night for your meeting since we're just meeting on Thursday. You know, would it be for next Monday during the day? It could be. It really depends on what comes out of the meeting. But I think you'll at least see it, you know, within the next week or so.
Okay, so you can.
We'll put some draft protocols together on allowing the public back into the building. That's what we specifically want you to review.
Okay. And so would they also, so it sounds like you can talk to department heads on Thursday and that you'll communicate that, the sort of the email checklist and all that about the return to work or whatever we wound up calling it. And then additionally bringing the public back in.
Yeah, for employees, we're all set. We've taken care of all that, but just to add the public back in, but we'll wrap it all into paperwork and show it to you.
For employees, you're all set?
We didn't need any exceptions, so I don't know if you want to see anything. You said you didn't need to see anything.
So the training piece is taken care of. Have you guys done in-person training or?
Not yet, but it's on the plan. So yeah. We have draft documents internally if you want to see them, but you said you didn't. Why don't I just catch up to you in the next couple of days and we can talk about what the board does and doesn't want to see.
Okay. That was the last, unless any other board members have other agenda items, that was the last one that I think we had. Okay.
Alrighty, that's all I had. Thank you, everybody. We'll get moving on the voting plan.
Yeah, and don't forget the public communication, the statement I forwarded to everybody so we can get that launched today, ideally.
Okay, very good.
Press release. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. If there's any other Board of Health. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second. Oh, actually, I guess we have to promote Rick to a full voting member for the purposes of this meeting, given that we only have two. Is that true? Given that we only have two voting members? And
you have a quorum. You have two.
Okay.
You have two.
Or you can either way, but I don't think there's much to it.
Right. Would you like to vote, Rick?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Adjourn the meeting? Okay.
Let's adjourn the meeting.
Did we have a second? Carrie, you're taking meeting minutes, so you can record the history as it happened. Oh, roll call, Eleanor.
Carrie, yes.
Great. And then Rick, it seemed like you were saying yes with the waving.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. Great. Okay. Thank you all, and I will see you Thursday.
Thanks.